Have you ever felt completely blindsided by a friend's betrayal? You know the feeling. You trust someone, you think you know them, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, they turn cold or undermine you. It leaves you spinning, wondering if you ever really knew them at all. Or maybe it's closer to home. Maybe you've been confused by a partner's sudden shift in mood. One minute they're warm, the next they're distant, and you're left scrambling to figure out what you did wrong.
And then there's the most frustrating person of all, yourself. How many times have you made a solemn vow to start a new diet, to stop losing your temper, or to finally finish that project, only to find yourself breaking that promise a week later? You watch yourself do the exact opposite of what you planned, almost like you're watching a stranger. It's an unsettling feeling. It's the sensation of being a pawn in a game you don't understand. You feel pushed and pulled by invisible forces, emotions you can't control, reactions you didn't see coming, and people who seem to wear masks that you can't quite see behind. You feel like you're reacting to life rather than leading it.
If this sounds familiar, you aren't alone. In fact, this feeling of being emotionally manipulated or misunderstood is perhaps the most universal human experience there is. We all like to think we are sophisticated, rational, modern people in control of our destiny, but the truth is often much messier. What if I told you that there is a pattern to this madness? That beneath the surface of every confusing interaction, every sudden betrayal, and every broken resolution, there is a hidden code governing it all. Robert Greene calls this human nature, and in his book, The Laws of Human Nature, he argues that we are actually more enslaved to these ancient, primitive drives today than ever before, precisely because we think we've outgrown them.
And that brings us right here, to the moment where we stop sleepwalking through our interactions and start paying attention. It is time to pull back the curtain on the theater of human behavior. Welcome to The Last Read, books for your ears, wisdom for your life. If you value deep insights over surface-level chatter, and if you want to ensure you never miss a dose of future wisdom that could give you the upper hand, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss where we're going next.
Today, we are cracking the code of human behavior with Robert Greene's massive, insightful guide, The Laws of Human Nature. This isn't just a psychology textbook, it's a field guide to the human animal. By the end of this episode, I'm promising you something powerful, a sort of psychological X-ray vision. You will walk away with the tools to see past the polite smiles and the rehearsed scripts, straight into the true intentions simmering underneath. We aren't just talking about body language here. We're talking about the dark secrets of our psychology, the shadow sides, the aggressive drives, and the grandiosity that we all try so hard to hide.
If you want to follow along or add this encyclopedia of human behavior to your own shelf, and I highly recommend that you do, you can find a link to the hard copy right in the description below. But before we can dissect the laws, we have to understand the man who codified them. To understand the message, we must look at the messenger, a man who has spent a lifetime studying the ultimate chess game of power and influence. Robert Greene. Now that is a name that might make some people a little nervous, and for good reason. If you know him, it's probably from his breakout hit, The 48 Laws of Power. That book became a sort of underground Bible for everyone from hip-hop moguls like Jay-Z and 50 Cent to Fortune 500 CEOs. And interestingly enough, it's one of the most requested books in the American prison system. But calling Greene just an author feels like a bit of an undersell. He's more like a detective of history, a student of the ultimate chess game.
Before he wrote a single word of his bestsellers, he worked something like 80 different jobs, from construction worker to Hollywood screenwriter. And in every single one, he saw the same power dynamics playing out. So he did what any obsessed scholar would do. He went to the library. He spent years devouring biographies, analyzing history's most brilliant and terrible figures. We're talking about everyone from Pericles in ancient Athens to the strategic genius of Queen Elizabeth I, all the way down to the dark paranoia of Richard Nixon. He wanted to know what made them tick, what made them rise, and more importantly, what made them fall.
The Laws of Human Nature is considered by many, including Greene himself, to be his magnum opus. It is the culmination of all that research. If the 48 Laws of Power was the playbook on how to play the game, this book is the deep dive into the pieces on the board. It peels back the layers to show us the raw, unfiltered psychology that drives us all. And the first thing he found? It's a bit of a hard pill to swallow. He discovered that for all our modern technology and our fancy suits and our polite society, we are not nearly as logical as we pretend to be. In fact, Greene argues that our belief in our own rationality might just be our biggest delusion.
This concept of rationality being a delusion, that's the core of the first law in the book, the Law of Irrationality. And honestly, it's one of the most humbling parts of Greene's work. Greene argues that we like to think of ourselves as these logical, Spock-like creatures. We make pros and cons lists, we weigh the evidence. But in reality, we are about 95% emotional and maybe 5% rational. Think about it. How many times have you made a decision that you convinced yourself was logical, but deep down, it was entirely emotional? Let's take a classic American example. You go to a dealership to buy a sensible, fuel-efficient sedan. It fits your budget. It's practical. But then you test drive that sleek, overpriced sports car. The engine roars, you feel the vibration in the steering wheel, and suddenly you feel powerful. You feel successful. Next thing you know, you're signing the papers for a car you can't afford. And what do you tell yourself? Oh, it has great resale value. It's an investment. That is the rational mind playing catch-up, trying to justify what the emotional mind has already decided.
Or consider something we've all done, the angry text message. Someone slights you, maybe a friend, maybe a coworker. You feel that rush of heat, that immediate need to defend your ego. You type out a paragraph of absolute venom and hit send. It feels great for about 10 seconds. Then the adrenaline fades, the logic kicks in, and you stare at your phone thinking, oh no, why did I do that? That is the law of irrationality in action. We are constantly reacting to the present moment, driven by impulses we don't even recognize. So, is the solution to become a robot? To suppress everything? No. Greene says that's impossible. Instead, he introduces a concept called the inner Athena. He draws this from Pericles, the great statesman of ancient Athens. Pericles was known for his unnatural calm in the face of chaos. He believed in cultivating a small, quiet voice of reason, an inner deity of wisdom that could stand apart from the noise of his emotions. Greene uses a fantastic metaphor here, the rider and the horse. Imagine your emotions are a wild horse. This horse has tremendous energy. It's powerful, it's fast, and it drives you forward. Without the horse, you have no passion, no drive. You're lifeless. But a horse without a rider is dangerous. It gets spooked easily. It runs off cliffs. It chases after things it shouldn't. Your reason, your inner Athena, is the rider. The rider doesn't kill the horse. The rider holds the reins. The rider guides that energy so it doesn't destroy you. Most of us are just the horse running wild, thinking we're steering ourselves. The goal of this book is to train that rider, to create that split second of space between feeling an emotion and acting on it. Because when we don't have that control, when we let the horse run the show, we start doing something else to survive in the herd. We start pretending. We realize that showing our raw, wild emotions isn't socially acceptable, so we learn to hide. We learn to smile when we're angry. We learn to nod when we're bored. And this leads us directly into the territory of the second law, a world of shadows and performance.
This brings us to the law of role-playing. Greene reminds us that the word personality actually comes from the Latin word persona, which means mask. And in the theater of polite society, we are all wearing one. You see, from a very young age, we learn that we can't just blurt out everything we think. If you're bored, you don't yawn in someone's face, you nod. If you're envious, you don't scowl, you congratulate them. We curate a version of ourselves that fits in, a version that is humble, confident, and diligent. But here is the danger. We tend to mistake these masks for reality.
we take people at their word.
Greene argues that you need to stop listening so much to what people say and start watching how they say it. He uses the example of the legendary therapist Milton Erickson, who was paralyzed by polio as a teenager. Unable to move, he spent years just sitting and watching his family. He realized that their words often said yes, while their bodies were screaming no. Bringing this into 2024, imagine a typical workplace scenario. Think of that coworker who is always smiling at you, always agreeing with your ideas in meetings. They seem like your biggest supporter. But look closer. When you turn your back, does that smile vanish instantly? When you get praised by the boss, do you see a micro-expression of contempt flash across their face for just a split second? That is the shadow behind the smile. While their words are saying, "Great job, I'm happy for you," their body language, the tension in their neck, the tapping of a foot, the lack of a genuine crinkle around the eyes, might be revealing that they are actually plotting to take credit for your work. The law of role-playing teaches us that the mask always has cracks. We leak our true intentions through these nonverbal cues. If you can learn to spot them, you stop being a naive audience member and become a master observer of the human play. But what happens when someone becomes so obsessed with their own performance, so fixated on the image they project, that they lose the ability to see you at all? This takes us from the person wearing a mask to the person who has fallen in love with their own reflection, the territory of the narcissist.
The territory of the narcissist. Now, before you tune out thinking, "Oh, I know plenty of narcissists, glad we're finally talking about them," I need to stop you right there, because Robert Greene drops a bit of a bombshell in this chapter. The law of narcissism isn't just about that toxic ex or that megalomaniac boss. It is about you. Greene argues that we are all narcissists, every single one of us. Think of it as a spectrum. We all have a self-esteem instrument inside us that constantly needs validation, like a gauge that we need to keep filled. The only difference is how we fill it. At the dangerous end of this spectrum, we have what Greene calls the deep narcissist. These are people who never developed a solid sense of self, often due to some trauma or abandonment in childhood. Because they feel empty inside, they have to constantly source their validation from the outside world. To a deep narcissist, you aren't really a person with your own hopes and dreams. You are what Greene calls a self-object. You are a prop in their movie, a mirror whose only job is to reflect their greatness back at them. If you stop reflecting, you become useless, or worse, an enemy. But here is the twist. The goal isn't to destroy your ego. The goal is to become what Greene calls a healthy narcissist. It sounds contradictory, doesn't it? But a healthy narcissist has a self-image that is strong and resilient. They love themselves enough that they don't need to constantly feed off others. Because their inner gauge is full, they can turn their attention outward. They can practice true empathy. Let me give you an example. Picture a dinner party. We have all been there. You are telling a story about a challenge you're facing at work, maybe a difficult client. Person A, the deep narcissist, waits for you to take a breath, not to digest what you said, but to jump in. They say, "Oh, that reminds me of this client I had last year who was twice as bad," and suddenly the spotlight has shifted. They have hijacked the energy of the table, and you feel drained.
Now look at person B, the healthy narcissist. They aren't thinking about their own story. They lean in. They ask, "Why do you think that bothered you so much?" Or, "What are you going to do next?" They lock eyes with you. They make you feel like the only person in the room. That is the power of turning the lens outward. But navigating the social world isn't just about spotting the people who are obsessed with themselves. There is another type of person who is perhaps even harder to read, because they don't seem like a narcissist at all. They seem selfless, saintly, incredibly nice. But sometimes that aggressive need for attention doesn't vanish. It just goes underground. It hides in the dark corners of the personality, waiting for a chance to leak out when you least expect it. This brings us to the parts of ourselves we are terrified to show the world, the parts we repress.
This is the essence of the law of repression. Robert Greene dives deep into the work of Carl Jung here to explain a concept called the shadow. Think of the shadow as a basement in your mind,
A dark, locked room where you shove everything about yourself that society says is wrong or impolite. We're talking about your envy, your greed, your aggression, your desire to dominate. From the time we're children, we are taught to be nice. We're told to share, to smile, to be agreeable. So naturally, we take those darker, sharper impulses and we stuff them into the basement. We lock the door. We think they're gone. But Greene warns us, they are not gone. They're just fermenting. And because they are compressed under all that pressure, they don't just sit there. They leak out. And they usually leak out in the most confusing, toxic way possible: passive aggression. Let's go back to our dinner party for a second. Picture someone who Greene calls the saint.
This is the person who seems almost too good to be true. They are endlessly accommodating. They claim to hate drama. They're always smiling, always deferring to others, seemingly devoid of any ego. They project this air of moral superiority, of absolute purity. But watch them closely after a few glasses of wine, or pay attention when things don't go their way. Suddenly, you hear a comment. It's said with a smile, but it stings. It's a sarcastic remark that cuts right to your deepest insecurity. Or maybe they accidentally forget to do something important for you, or they give you a backhanded compliment, like, "I wish I could be as relaxed as you are about your career. I just care too much about my work." It's confusing, right? You think, they're so nice, they couldn't have meant that. But they did. That is the shadow leaking out. Because they have repressed their natural aggression so deeply, it comes out sideways. They can't admit, even to themselves, that they are angry or competitive, so they punish you with a smile. It's aggressive energy disguised as virtue. Greene's lesson here is counterintuitive. He says, stop trying to be a saint.
If you keep shoving your shadow into the dark, it will control you. It will turn you into that passive-aggressive person no one trusts. Instead, you have to open the basement door. You have to look at those dark impulses and own them. This doesn't mean acting on every angry impulse. It means integrating them. It means accepting that you are a human being capable of aggression, ambition, and selfishness. When you accept that, you can channel that energy into something productive, like being fiercely protective of your team, or channeling that competitive drive into your work, rather than sniping at your friends. You become a whole person, not a fractured one hiding behind a mask of niceness. But even if you manage to integrate your shadow, even if you know who you are, it doesn't matter much if you don't know where you are going. There is another law that governs how we move through time, and without it, we are just ships drifting in the open ocean, turning whichever way the wind blows. And that feeling of drifting, it's more dangerous than you think.
Drifting into the law of aimlessness. Because here is the hard truth. Unlike animals, we don't have instincts that automatically tell us what to do or where to go. A tiger doesn't have an existential crisis about whether it should hunt or become a vegetarian. It just is. But you have to choose. And if you don't choose a direction, the world will choose one for you. Robert Greene describes this state as being a drifter. We've all met people like this, or maybe at times we've been this person. The drifter is always reacting, never directing. They bounce from one job to another, one relationship to another, chasing the latest trend or whatever looks shiny in the moment. They listen to their parents, their friends, social media, everyone except themselves. And sure, that might feel safe for a while. It feels open-minded, but eventually the storm hits.
Imagine a ship in the middle of a dark, violent ocean. The waves are crashing, the wind is howling. If that ship has a compass and a destination, it can cut through the waves. It might take damage, it might get blown off course, but it knows where it's going. It can correct itself. Now imagine that same ship without a compass, no destination, no map. It doesn't just get lost, it gets destroyed. It turns broadside to the waves and capsizes. That is what happens to the human spirit when it lacks a goal. You become anxious, easily manipulated, and fundamentally insecure because you have no anchor.
So, how do you find your compass? Greene calls it your life's task. And the crazy part is, you probably already know what it is. You just forgot.
Greene argues that we all have primal inclinations, deep biological attractions to certain subjects or activities that you felt when you were children. Maybe you were obsessed with how things worked, or you loved telling stories, or you were fascinated by patterns in nature. That wasn't just a phase. That was your inner guidance system trying to speak to you before the world told you to be practical. You have to clear away the noise of what you should do and listen to what you must do. You have to reconnect with those primal inclinations. When you lock on to that purpose, decision-making becomes easy. Does this action help me fulfill my life's task? Yes? Do it. No? Ignore it. You stop drifting. You start advancing. But finding your compass is only step one. You can know exactly where you want to go, but if you think you have an infinite amount of time to get there, you'll never leave the harbor. You need urgency. You need a wake-up call that shakes you to your very core. And there is one reality we all try to ignore that provides exactly that.
Death. It's the ultimate taboo, isn't it? We act as if we have an infinite contract with life, that we can always start that business next year or mend that relationship someday. Robert Greene calls this the law of death denial. We live in a culture that shuffles death out of sight, into hospitals and funeral homes, sanitizing it so we can pretend it doesn't exist. But here is the final, perhaps most important lesson of the book. Ignoring death is actually ignoring life. Greene argues that we need to do the opposite. We need to practice memento mori, a Latin phrase meaning remember you must die. Now I know, that sounds incredibly morbid. You might be thinking, why would I want to walk around thinking about my own funeral? But it's not about being depressed, it's about clarity. Think about it. When you truly accept that your time is finite, that the sand in the hourglass is actually running out, all the petty nonsense just falls away. The grudges you're holding? Irrelevant. The fear of embarrassment that stops you from speaking up? Meaningless. The hours you spend scrolling on your phone? Suddenly, they feel like a theft of the precious time you have left.
Greene tells the story of the writer Flannery O'Connor, who was diagnosed with a debilitating disease at a young age. She described the illness as a bullet in the side. It was painful, but it woke her up. It gave her a visceral sense of urgency that allowed her to write with an intensity most people never find. She didn't have time to be mediocre, and neither do you. When you use death as your advisor, you stop sleepwalking, you stop drifting. You realize that this moment, right now, is the only one you are guaranteed. That life's task we just talked about, you need to start it today. And that brings us to the end of our journey through the laws of human nature. We started this series by looking in the mirror and realizing how irrational we are, how often we are puppets to our own fluctuating emotions. We learned to see through the masks of the people around us, the narcissists, the passive aggressors, the role players. We discussed how to stop drifting and lock on to a primal sense of purpose.
And now we finish with the fuel that drives it all, the awareness of our own mortality. It's a lot to take in. This book is a beast. It's dense, it's challenging, and it forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. But that is exactly why it is the ultimate guide to mastering your own destiny. If you can internalize these laws, you stop being a leaf blowing in the wind of other people's whims, and you start becoming the active author of your own story. If you've enjoyed this deep dive, please do me one last favor and hit that subscribe button for The Last Read. We have more heavy hitters coming up that you won't want to miss. And seriously, if you haven't picked up a copy of Robert Greene's book yet, check the link in the description. Our conversations here are just the tip of the iceberg. The real transformation happens when you sit down with the text yourself. So, stop waiting for the perfect moment. It doesn't exist. You have the map, you have the compass, and now you know the clock is ticking. Go out there and make it count.